I'm Christine Abela from Oxygenate Consulting. I'm a business consultant with a strong tech background, helping small business owners move from chaos to calm and take their business to the next level. In this podcast, I share practical ideas and simple systems to make your business easier to run, more profitable, and more enjoyable to own. Some of the content is created with the help of AI tools, but the voice you're hearing right now is mine, and everything is grounded in real-world experience. If you'd like to learn more, get in touch, or download free notes and resources, head over to gobeyondbusy.com.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're getting into something really fundamental. The secret to sounding like you everywhere you show up.
Yeah, it's all about creating that consistent, authentic voice, isn't it? No matter where you're communicating.
Exactly. Because let's face it, it's a challenge for so many. You might feel like you absolutely nail it in an email, but then your social media posts just feel a bit off. Or maybe the website sounds really formal, but your actual team interactions are super casual.
Totally. We see that all the time.
Yeah.
How do you weave that single thread, that feeling of you, through everything? It's tough.
It is, but getting it right is huge. And the material we dug into, a lot of it connected to Go Beyond Busy, resources really aimed at helping businesses, especially those in that $1 to $10 million range, connect better.
Practical stuff.
Totally practical. It really hammers home why this matters so much. A strong voice gets you recognized. It builds trust because people know what to expect, right?
And that consistency, well, that's your foundation for actual relationships, lasting ones.
Okay, so let's get into it. When that voice is authentic, when it's consistent, that's how you build real connections. That's how you build trust.
Absolutely. Think about those brands or even people whose communications you just know. You'd recognize it instantly. That's the goal.
Right. So our mission in this deep dive is to really break down how you can find, cultivate, and consistently use that kind of recognizable, authentic voice.
And it really starts with getting a handle on what voice actually means in this context. Because it's more than just the words themselves.
Okay, let's unpack that. So when we talk about brand voice, or even just your voice,
Right.
What are we really talking about?
Well, think of it as the distinct personality that comes through. It's that unique flavor, the character underneath it all, that makes your communication recognizably yours.
So it's the consistent way you express who you are, your values, your perspective.
Exactly. And it's helpful to separate it from a couple of related things, like messaging is just what you're saying, the core information.
Okay.
And tone. Tone is how you adapt your voice for a specific situation. Tone can change, right?
Yeah.
If you're delivering bad news versus celebrating something.
Okay, so tone shifts.
But the underlying voice, that should stay pretty steady. That's the constant.
Got it. Can you give an example of a strong voice?
Sure. Think about MailChimp. Their voice always feels kind of conversational, helpful, maybe a little bit quirky,
Yeah, definitely.
Whether they're explaining a feature or just sending a newsletter. Then you've got someone like Patagonia. Totally different feel.
Right, very principled, almost activist.
Exactly. That voice comes through loud and clear in everything. From how they describe a jacket to their big environmental campaigns. Instantly recognizable, but completely different personalities.
And this applies even to small things, like, say, a product description.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine describing a tent. You could just list the technical specs, waterproof rating, materials, weight. Very dry.
Standard stuff.
Or you could use a voice aimed at adventurers. Talk about, weathering a storm miles from anywhere. The feeling of security inside. Same tent, but the voice creates a totally different emotional connection.
That makes sense. And you're saying this isn't just about sounding nice. There's something deeper going on.
Yeah, there is. It's actually fascinating. Our brains are kind of wired to process familiar voices more easily. Less cognitive load.
Really? So a consistent voice literally makes it easier for people to absorb your message.
Basically, yes. It means your message is more likely to stick. Voice acts almost like an emotional shortcut. When someone instantly recognizes you, they don't have to spend mental energy figuring out the source or the angle.
Which builds that immediate connection.
Precisely. It fosters what you might call high-fidelity relationships. Connections built on clarity and that feeling of genuine understanding.
And building this consistency, It doesn't have to be super complicated to start, right?
Not at all. You can begin with a simple checklist for yourself or your team. Like, are we using our standard pronouns consistently? Do our sentences generally flow in a similar way? Crucially, does this feel like it aligns with our core values?
Just asking those basic questions can make a big difference.
A huge difference. Those simple checks add up to a much more cohesive feel overall.
Okay, so we understand what voice is and why it matters. How do you actually find this authentic voice? It sounds like something you discover, not invent.
That's exactly right. It usually emerges when you dig into 4 key foundational elements.
All right, let's hear them. What are these foundations?
First up is your mission. What's the fundamental reason you exist? Your core purpose. That purpose inevitably shapes how you communicate.
How so?
Well, think about it. An organization focused on, say, empowering people towards financial independence is going to sound very different from one whose mission is just about celebrating simple, everyday joys. The mission sets the overall direction for the voice.
Okay, that makes total sense. Purpose drives expression. What's number 2?
Second are your values. What core principles guide you? These determine your ethical boundaries in communication, what language feels right, what's off limits.
So if transparency is a core value...
Exactly. Then your communication will likely be very open, maybe even blunt sometimes. If tradition is a key value, maybe you're more formal, more reserved. Values define the guardrails.
Okay. Mission gives direction, values set the boundaries. What's next?
Third element is personality. What are the human-like traits you embody? Are you like an optimistic coach, a straight-talking expert, a curious explorer? But the key here is that these traits need to feel genuine. They should flow naturally from your mission and values, not just be characteristics you picked because they sound good. Authenticity is crucial.
So it has to be real, not an act.
Absolutely. And the fourth element ties it all together. Language pillars. These are the actual linguistic choices you make.
Like specific words.
Yes, specific word preferences, typical sentence structures, the kinds of metaphors or analogies you tend to use. These are the tangible building blocks that express that personality. For example, a brand with a collaborative personality might deliberately use inclusive language, we, us, and maybe metaphors about teamwork.
I see. So there's a clear progression. Mission leads to values. Values inform personality, and personality dictates the specific language choices.
You've got it. That's the flow.
Yeah.
Mission, values, personality, language?
Okay, that framework is super helpful. But how do you actually find those things for yourself or your brand? What's the discovery process look like?
It's often a mix of looking inward and looking outward, or maybe looking backward first. A great starting point is often a content audit.
Looking at what you've already put out there.
Exactly. Go through your existing stuff, website, social media, email, sales scripts, everything. Find the pieces that really feel right, that sound like you at your best, and also spot the ones that feel off.
Where it doesn't quite connect.
Right. You'll start seeing patterns. You'll notice your natural tendencies, both good and bad.
Like digging through the archives for clues.
Precisely. Another place to look is mining the founding story. Often the language the founders used way back at the beginning when they were first articulating the why.
That initial passion.
Yes. That often contains the real, raw, authentic voice elements before things maybe got more corporate or diluted over time.
That really rings true. The original why is powerful.
Definitely. And then talking to people is key. Conducting stakeholder interviews, talking to key people inside the organization.
What kinds of questions would you ask them?
Really insightful ones like, if our brand was a person, what would they be like? What are 3 words we should never use to describe our communication? When we really connect with our audience, how do they feel? What's our unique promise? What values are totally non-negotiable for us? And are there any specific words or phrases that just feel uniquely us?
Wow, those questions would really get people thinking about the essence of the brand's communication.
They really do. The answers give you so much rich material. And from all that, the audit, the founding story, the interviews, you can start building a voice chart.
Okay, what's that?
It's basically where you boil it down to maybe 3 to 5 key voice attributes. And critically, for each one, you provide concrete examples. Do this and don't do this.
To make it really practical.
Exactly. So if an attribute is, say, confidently helpful, a do might be offer clear step-by-step guidance. A don't could be don't use jargon that confuses people, or don't sound hesitant or unsure.
So it translates the abstract idea into actual writing guidance.
Precisely. Then you start testing it out. Try using this developing voice in lower stakes places first.
Like social media captions or email subject lines.
Perfect examples. See how it feels, see how people respond. And one last tip, keep a voice log. Just a simple document where you jot down phrases, sentences, or even whole paragraphs you come across or write yourself that really nail the voice you're aiming for. It becomes this great evolving swipe file.
Love that. A living library of your voice. Okay, so you've done the internal work, you've started defining that authentic voice. But voice doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? It needs to connect with an audience.
100%. That's the other side of the coin. Finding your voice is step one, but making sure it resonates with the people you're trying to reach. That's where the magic happens. It's about alignment.
The audience mirror philosophy you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. It's about taking your authentic voice and aligning it, or maybe subtly adjusting its expression so it connects deeply with your audience's world.
How do you figure out what that world looks like from a communication perspective?
It starts with data, but you need to go beyond the basics. Demographics are okay, but their attitudes, values, lifestyles tell you why they make certain choices.
And their behaviors too, I guess.
Absolutely. Especially their communication behaviors. Where do they hang out online?
Yeah.
What kind of content do they engage with? How do they talk about the things that matter to them?
It's about building that really rich picture.
Totally. Take that fitness app example again. They realized a chunk of their audience were busy professionals. What do they value? Efficiency. Results.
Right. Time is precious.
So the app shifted its messaging, made it more direct, focused on the outcomes, the convenience. Still encouraging, that was part of their core voice, but the expression of it was tailored to that audience need for clear, quick info.
That's a great example of adapting based on knowing the audience. Where do you find these insights? Where's the data?
It's everywhere, really, if you know where to look. Website analytics time on page tells you what holds their interest. Support tickets and live chat logs are gold mines for understanding their pain points and the exact language they use.
Ah, the actual words they use.
Yes. Social media comments show you their emotional reactions, their humor. Online reviews highlight their priorities, what tipped the scales for them. Even things like email open rates based on different subject lines can tell you what kind of language grabs their attention.
So every interaction point is a potential source of insight.
Pretty much. And another really powerful framework here is jobs to be done.
Okay, what's that?
It focuses on why someone is hiring your product or service. What underlying need are they trying to fulfill? Are they buying a drill or are they hiring it to make a hole to hang a picture and feel proud of their home? Understanding the deeper motivation gives you huge clues about the language that will resonate.
So it's about their goals, not just their characteristics.
Exactly. And related to that is uncovering their emotional drivers. What are they desiring to? What are they afraid of? What identities are important to them? Tapping into those emotions is key for connection.
How do you get at those deeper feelings?
Methods like why interviews, asking follow-up questions to really get to the root cause. Social listening, monitoring conversations online. Analyzing the sentiment in reviews. And tools like empathy maps are fantastic for visualizing what your audience is thinking, feeling, saying, and doing.
Empathy maps.
Right.
To really step into their shoes.
Precisely. You're looking for recurring themes, the metaphors they use naturally, the emotionally charged words. That's where the connection lies.
And once you have this understanding,
you can build audience personas that are actually useful for communication. Focus less on generic stuff and more on their preferred expressions. Do they like short and sweet or detailed explanations? Humor or straightforwardness? What's their likely reading level? You can even use quick micro-surveys sometimes just to check in. Did this explanation make sense?
Keeping that feedback loop going.
Constantly. Now, here's a really important point. The goal is to mirror your audience, not mimic them.
Okay, what's the difference?
Mirroring is about reflecting their values, their communication style, maybe some of their vocabulary where it feels natural. Psychologically, we tend to trust people who communicate similarly to us. Mimicking is just copying their exact slang or phrases.
Which can feel inauthentic.
Totally. It can come across as trying too hard or even pandering. Mirroring is about finding common ground in communication style while staying true to your own core voice.
Got it. Like that financial services firm you mentioned, they became more direct, like their younger clients wanted, but didn't suddenly start using slang that wasn't them.
Exactly that. They mirrored the preference for clarity, not the specific trendy words.
So how do you actually translate these audience insights into practical communication guidelines?
There's a process. First, pinpoint a key insight about how your audience communicates or what they value in communication.
Yeah.
Second, translate that insight into a specific voice attribute or tonal guideline. Third, develop clear do this, don't do this examples for that guideline. Fourth, create some sample communications using it. And fifth, test those samples. See if they actually resonate before you roll it out widely.
A systematic way to connect insights to actual output.
Yep, it keeps it grounded and intentional. So you've got your authentic voice defined, and you understand how to align it with your audience.
Yeah.
But communication doesn't happen in just one context, right?
No, definitely not. The situation changes everything.
Exactly. And this is where that crucial distinction between voice and tone really comes into play again.
Right. Remind us of the core difference one more time.
Sure. Voice is your consistent personality. It's the who you are, and it stays stable over time. Tone is the how you express that voice in a particular moment or situation. It's the attitude, the emotional color.
So voice is the foundation, tone is the adaptation.
Perfectly put. Think about a brand like Slack. Their core voice is generally friendly, helpful, maybe a bit playful.
Yeah, you feel that.
But if they're communicating about a major outage, the tone shifts dramatically, right? It becomes serious, concerned, reassuring. The underlying helpfulness is still there, but the emotional expression changes completely to fit the situation.
Context is king, then, for tone.
Absolutely. You can think of tone as sliding scales, formal versus informal, urgent versus relaxed, empathetic versus purely factual, humorous versus serious.
And what determines where you land on those scales?
Several things. The audience's likely emotional state is huge. The norms of the specific channel, you talk differently on Twitter than in a legal document. The purpose of the message, is it bad news, good news, a simple update? And even external events, what's happening in the world that might affect how your message is received.
And throughout all that adjusting, you have to keep asking.
Does this still sound like us? That's the anchor. Yeah. Does this tonal shift still feel authentic to our core voice and values?
Because getting the tone wrong can be really damaging. I remember some examples like brands trying to be funny during a crisis.
Oh yeah. Tone deafness is a real killer for trust. Like that infamous Gap tweet during Hurricane Sandy trying to leverage it for sales. Big mistake.
Yikes.
But conversely, when handled well, voice provides stability during a crisis, while tone shows awareness. Think about Intercom when they had outages. Their communication maintained their clear, helpful voice, but adopted a very direct, transparent, and apologetic tone. It showed they understood the user impact.
So voice is the steady hand, tone is the responsive adjustment.
Exactly. And audience emotion is probably the #1 factor. Someone celebrating success, enthusiastic tone, someone frustrated with a problem, empathetic, solution-focused tone. And channel matters too. LinkedIn expects more professional tone than, say, TikTok.
So how do you help a whole team navigate this? It sounds like it requires judgment.
It does, but you can guide that judgment with a tone playbook. And ideally, this isn't separate from your voice guide, it's integrated.
Okay, what goes into this playbook?
You'd map out the key tonal dimensions relevant to your voice. Maybe it's warmth, formality, urgency. Then you plot common communication scenarios onto that map.
Like responding to a complaint goes here, announcing a new product goes there.
Exactly, and provide specific examples. How does our confidently helpful voice sound when the tone needs to be empathetic versus celebratory? Show, don't just tell. Maybe even include visual guides.
So people can see the range.
Right. Then you gather feedback, refine it, make it part of training, and crucially, review it regularly. Document examples of when tone was adapted really well. It's an ongoing process.
A practical tool to help everyone make smart tonal choices while staying true to the core voice.
That's the goal. And all of this, the voice attributes, the audience mirroring, the tone playbook, needs to live somewhere accessible and actionable. Which brings us to the voice style guide.
The master document. The blueprint for consistency.
Pretty much. It's where you take all these abstract principles and turn them into practical, everyday guidelines that anyone creating content can use.
Why is having one so critical?
Because without it, inconsistency is almost guaranteed. Different people write differently, moods change, new channels pop up. A style guide provides that common reference point. It keeps everyone aligned, ensures the voice doesn't drift, speeds up content creation because there's less guesswork, and reduces endless rounds of revisions trying to get the feel right.
Makes sense. So what are the must-have sections in a really good voice style guide?
Okay, you definitely need your core voice attributes, but explained with a focus on application. How does this attribute actually look in writing? Then the tone matrix or playbook we just discussed. That visual guide to adapting tone. A word bank is super helpful.
What goes in the word bank?
Preferred terms, words to avoid, maybe overused buzzwords or words that clash with your values. Alternatives for common words. Guidance on jargon, when is it okay, when isn't it? Then those crucial examples. Side-by-side comparisons are often the clearest way to illustrate a point.
Seeing it in action.
Exactly. You'll also want guidelines on channel adaptations, any specific nuances for email versus social versus web, and finally, a governance model. Who owns the guide? How is it updated? How are changes communicated?
Wow. Quite comprehensive. How do you actually build something like this?
It's usually a phased approach.
Hmm?
First, research, that content audit we talked about, stakeholder interviews, audience research, really understanding the current state and desired future state, involve people from different teams, marketing, support, sales, product.
Get buy-in early.
Crucial.
Yeah.
Second, development. This is where you translate the attributes and insights into clear rules, and those concrete examples really flesh out the do this, don't do this for each attribute. Third, implementation. Roll it out, do workshops, maybe using real content drafts, integrate it into creative briefs, checklists, onboarding for new hires, make it part of the workflow.
So research, build, then embed it into how people work.
That's the path. And for today's world, you need to think about distributed teams and AI.
Right. How does a style guide work then?
Make it easily accessible, probably digital. Maybe create a self-guided onboarding module about the voice. Consider interactive tools like a digital decision tree. Are you writing an email about X? Okay, the tone should be Y. Here's some example phrases. For multilingual brands, provide guidance that helps translators capture the feeling and style, not just the literal meaning.
And for AI writing tools.
This is key. Create specific prompt templates that incorporate your voice attributes and tone guidelines. Tell the AI, write in a voice attribute 1 and voice attribute 2 tile with a specific tone. Avoid words from don't use list. But also, be realistic. Document which parts of the voice, maybe subtle humor, empathy, complex analogies, still need significant human review and refinement. AI is a tool, not a replacement for judgment.
So the guide informs both human writers and AI prompts?
Yes, it becomes the single source of truth. And it can't just sit on a shelf. You have to keep it alive.
How do you do that?
Treat it like a living document. Schedule regular, maybe quarterly, voice labs. Get the content creators together, look at recent work, celebrate wins where the voice really shone through, discuss challenges, identify areas where the guide could be clearer or needs updating. Maybe have a dedicated chat channel for quick voice questions or sharing good examples.
Making it an ongoing conversation.
Exactly. And try to measure its effectiveness. Are approval times faster? Are revision requests more specific about voice tone issues? Can you develop a simple consistency score? Are writers feeling more confident?
Tracking the impact.
Right. And when you update it, be clear if it's just a minor tweak or a more fundamental evolution of the voice itself.
Okay, so the style guide is crucial for internal consistency. But then you have to actually use this voice out there across all the different platforms. That sounds like another challenge.
It definitely is. Because, as you said earlier, a tweet isn't a blog post, isn't a support chat. Each platform has its own kind of personality, its own norms.
Like Instagram is visual, LinkedIn is professional, TikTok is fast and entertaining.
Exactly. And the audience's mindset shifts too. Someone scrolling Instagram might be looking for quick inspiration, while someone on your website might be actively researching a solution. You have to understand the platform's character and the user's intent in that specific context.
So you can't just copy-paste the same message everywhere.
Please don't. It rarely works. The key is figuring out which aspects of your voice are non-negotiable, those core attributes that define you, and which aspects can be adapted.
The core wrapper idea again.
Precisely. Identify the essential message, the core. Then wrap it in language, formatting, and a tone that feels native and appropriate for that specific platform, the wrapper. Adjust those tone dials, formality, brevity, etc. Use platform features smartly, hashtags, tagging, polls.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Imagine a software company launching a new feature. On LinkedIn, they might post a detailed explanation focusing on the business benefits, maybe with a link to a white paper. Professional tone. On Twitter, it might be a short, punchy announcement with a GIF showing the feature in action and a link to a blog post. More concise, maybe a bit more excitement in the tone.
Right.
And in an email to existing customers, it might be more personalized, focusing on how this specific feature solves a pain point they might have, with clear instructions on how to use it. Helpful, user-focused tone. Same core message, but translated for each channel.
So it requires understanding both the voice and the platform.
And it requires coordination. Marketing needs to be aligned with support. Who needs to be aligned with product messaging, even sales pitches. Everyone needs to be singing from the same song sheet, even if they're adapting the melody slightly for their audience.
How do you manage that coordination, especially in bigger teams?
Tools can help. A channel matrix can be useful, literally mapping out For voice attribute, here's how it sounds on Instagram versus email versus support chat. A shared voice dashboard for campaign planning can keep everyone aligned on messaging and tone for specific initiatives. And those regular voice calibration sessions we talked about are vital for distributed teams.
Keeping everyone synced up.
Yeah. And again, AI prompt libraries aligned with the style guide can help ensure consistency even when content is being generated quickly across multiple channels.
Yeah.
But always with that human review step.
And how do you know if you're succeeding? How do you measure this cross-channel consistency?
It's tricky, but you can try a structured scorecard approach. Regularly review content samples from different channels. Score them. How well does this reflect voice attribute 1? How appropriate is the tone? You could also look at engagement deltas. Are certain channels underperforming? And could voice inconsistency be a factor?
Looking for patterns.
Exactly. Run small tests. Try slightly different tonal approaches on one channel and see how it impacts engagement compared to others. And listen for those qualitative signals. Are people commenting that your communication feels really you? Are influencers picking up on your distinct style? That kind of voice recognition is a powerful indicator.
So it's a mix of qualitative and quantitative checks. Okay, we've covered finding the voice, aligning it, adapting tone, documenting it, and applying it across channels. How do you bring it all together in practice, like in storytelling?
Great question. Voice is what gives your brand stories their unique flavor. You could tell the same basic story, say, about how your eco-friendly cleaning product works with drastically different voices.
How so?
Imagine one version told with a playful, slightly cheeky voice, focusing on making cleaning fun. Another told with an authoritative, science-backed voice, emphasizing efficacy and non-toxic ingredients. A third told with an empathetic voice, focusing on creating a safe home for your family. Same product, same core facts, but the voice changes the entire feel and connects with different emotional drivers.
It really changes the impacts.
Absolutely. Great brand stories often share elements, a clear protagonist, often the customer, vivid language, maybe recurring metaphors tied to the voice, stakes linked to core values, and a resolution that circles back to the brand's promise. The voice is what makes your version of that story unique and memorable.
So, is there a structure you recommend for crafting a core brand narrative that reflects the voice?
A simple 4-part structure often works well. 1. Setup, describe life before your solution. Establish the common ground, the problem your audience faces. 2. Spark, share what drove you to create your solution, the why, building that emotional connection. 3. Solution, explain your unique approach, focusing on your values and methodology, not just features. 4. Success, paint a picture of the positive change you enable, the outcome, both practical and emotional.
Setup, spark, solution, success. Nice.
And having those core narrative elements documented, infused with your defined voice, makes it easier to tell that story consistently everywhere. Think about MailChimp's Guess Less, Sell More campaigns. That narrative of simplifying things for small businesses comes through consistently.
And this applies even to the tiny bits of communication.
Oh, especially the tiny bits. Microcopy button labels, error messages, loading screens is a huge opportunity to reinforce your voice. Think of Slack's little encouraging messages while it loads. That adds up to a personality.
Those small touch points really matter.
They do. You could even have a quick voice alignment checklist before anything goes live. Does this sound like us? Is the tone right for this context? Have we used our preferred language? It helps maintain consistency across everything, from product naming to HR job descriptions to how executives talk in interviews.
It really needs to permeate the whole organization.
Ideally, yes. And keeping track of examples, both wins and misses, and discussing them in those voice labs helps everyone learn and improve continuously.
Okay, this feels like a solid process, but things change, right? Brands evolve, audiences shift. Is this voice set in stone forever?
Definitely not. And that's the final crucial piece, the ongoing journey. Your voice needs to evolve authentically along with your brand and your audience.
When do you know it's time for a voice checkup, or maybe even a more significant change?
Several triggers might signal it's time. Are you targeting a completely new audience segment, expanding into new markets with different cultural nuances? Have your core products or services changed significantly? Has there been a major cultural shift that makes your old way of speaking feel outdated or irrelevant? Are competitors starting to sound just like you? Or are you facing reputation challenges that require a shift in communication?
Lots of potential reasons.
Yeah. Think about Airbnb. Their voice evolved as their mission shifted from just offering spare rooms to promoting belonging anywhere. The voice had to mature alongside the brand's purpose. And you see stats about how much younger generations like Gen Z value trust and authenticity. If your voice feels out of step, you risk losing that trust.
So how do you manage that evolution? Is it just a gut feeling?
It should be more structured. We can think about it in terms of voice drift, small, unintentional inconsistencies, a voice refresh, consciously updating language and examples to keep it current, or a voice pivot, a more fundamental change, often linked to a major strategic shift.
Okay, drift, refresh, pivot. How do you approach a refresh or pivot thoughtfully?
There's a framework. First, a heritage audit. Revisit that mission, those core values. What's still true? What needs updating? Second, audience validation. Talk to your audience again. Use empathy interviews, surveys. Have their needs or communication preferences changed? Third, check your tone matrix. Are the ranges still appropriate for the kinds of conversations you're having now? Fourth, small-scale testing. Before a big overhaul, test potential new voice elements or tones in limited ways. Newsletters, social captions, A/B testing website copy.
So check the foundations, check the audience, check the application, then test carefully.
Exactly. Like a SaaS company that started with a really playful startup-y voice might need to evolve towards sounding more like a trusted, reliable enterprise partner as they grow. That requires a conscious refresh.
How do you make this review process continuous, not just a reaction to a crisis?
Treat it like product development, continuous improvement. Schedule those quarterly voice checks. Look specifically for stale language, tone misalignments, areas where you sound too much like competitors, or where the voice just doesn't match the brand's current positioning anymore.
And involve different teams in that review.
Absolutely. Get diverse perspectives, and crucially, document any intentional changes back into the style guide. Keep track of the evolution. Measure voice health over time, maybe through brand perception studies, consistency scores, or tracking how voice impacts content performance.
Like a regular health check for your brand's communication.
Precisely. Even a quick staleness test. Does any of our standard language feel tired or cliche now?
It's about balancing that hard-won consistency with the need to stay relevant and grow, right?
Exactly. Voice evolution often mirrors the organization's own maturity. And for global brands, it's balancing that core global consistency with local cultural relevance. Think about how Duolingo maintains its quirky personality, but adapts specific examples in humor for different languages. Staying current with inclusive language is also a key part of this ongoing evolution.
So build in feedback loops.
Constantly. Customer panels, employee feedback channels, maybe voice spotters who flag inconsistencies, even using AI tools to monitor tone sentiment across interactions can provide valuable input for keeping your voice authentic and evolving thoughtfully.
This has been such a comprehensive look at finding and maintaining an authentic voice. We've really dug into the secret to sounding like you everywhere you show up.
Yeah, we've covered a lot. From understanding your core, that mission, values, personality, to truly knowing your audience and mirroring them authentically, then adapting thoughtfully with tone, documenting everything in a living style guide, ensuring consistency across channels.
And finally, embracing that ongoing evolution. It's a journey, not a destination.
Absolutely. And the payoff is huge. That strong, consistent, authentic voice is what builds those deep connections, fosters trust, and ultimately makes you recognizable and memorable.
So for everyone listening, here's a thought to take away. Think about just one small area. Maybe it's how you start your emails or how your team answers the phone or a standard presentation opening where could your voice be just a little bit more consistently, authentically you? And what difference might that small shift make in how you connect with others? It's definitely something worth exploring.
Great point. It often starts with those small, intentional changes. Where do you go?
Well, the resources we used point towards gobeyondbusy.com. They've got show notes on this stuff, free downloads, really practical, actionable steps.
Yeah, and those resources are linked to Christina Abela. She's the consultant behind the Go Beyond Busy podcast, super tech savvy.
Right.
She's got a strong business network, a really smart, non-technical way of explaining things. She helps small business owners, like the ones we're talking about, grow and simplify.
So if you're a business owner feeling a bit stuck on implementing something like a brand voice strategy effectively,
maybe working with a consultant who gets both the tech and the business side, someone like Christine, could give you that practical clarity you need. Definitely worth considering.
thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.
Thanks for listening to Go Beyond Busy. If something in today's episode struck a chord, or you'd like support to get your business to the next level, head over to gobeyondbusy.com. You'll find more resources there and an easy way to get in touch. I'm your host, Christine Abela from Oxygenate Consulting, helping you to fall in love with your business all over again. Thanks for joining me.